if you're not going to, ironically, if you're not going to consult a financial advisor, you would still want to read this book, because she really talks so deeply about kind of the big common mistakes that people make, and they are helped along. Some of them are helped along in those mistakes by having either the wrong person representing them and advising them, or someone with very misaligned incentives, recommending things for them. So she gets down, and it's funny, she says, these are the 10 essential truths you need to know about your money. But really, when you read the book, it kind of distills only 5. And then the other stuff is a little murkier, and I don't think is compelling. So to sort of really drill down to what, if you read the entire book and you really wanted to just capture what do you need to know, what are the cliff notes, it would be these 5 things, what really matter. The first is that your employer is probably your best financial partner, and so much gets overlooked. Paying off debt is critical, and we know that, so why would a financial advisor overlook that? We'll talk about that. The tax consequences of any financial move, tax consequences are not common sense. They are rarely logical. You just have to know the rules. And I happen to day trade sometimes, and it amazes me the things I do, just on my phone. I'm about to buy a stock or sell a stock, or, and there are no warnings. There are no pauses. Nobody says, are you sure you want to do that? Or do you realize you're about to trigger the wash rule? And, all these things that are tax consequences that are pretty serious. There's no pause. No one's warning you. No one's telling you. And your financial advisor ideally would be the person telling you, and often they don't. And we'll explain why. The fourth thing is, and this is more a human error, more on the client side, the you side, that you will, like a lot of people, be very eager to jump on board the new hot thing. For example, cryptocurrency. And a good financial advisor has the confidence to convince you not to do that, and maybe give you data about like the last 7 or 8 times people were chasing returns and how badly it ended. But other financial advisors say, oh, you call, especially a broker, oh, you called, do you want to jump on that hot stock? Sure, that's how I get paid. Like taking stock orders and generating commissions and things like that. So, and it's funny because a lot of people think commissions no longer exist, and it in a sense that's true, but payment for order flow definitely exists. So that incentive to sort of churn the portfolio and jump in and out of things is still there. And then finally, she talks about this, that there are just so many bogus advisors out there. So those are the things that that really that Liz Davidson has identified in her years and years of experience, and that we're going to talk about tonight, and really capture what's going on. Let's see, why is this not advancing? Okay, so the biggest question, right? And I mean, Liz Davidson filled an entire book with this idea. Why on earth would a financial advisor ignore what really matters for your financial health, for you to get the best possible outcome, not income? And this is supposed to be a discussion group. So I would love for you, anyone out there who wants to can take a stab at this question or unmute themselves. And there's definitely a part at the end where we're going to ask for your own personal experiences, if you've had good or bad or whatever with a financial advisor. But would anybody, and this is not talking about, people who are fraudulent or people, bad actors. And we can also look in the chat. So, okay, if you're being shy, you could just type it into the chat. But why would a financial advisor ignore what really matters? Why would Liz Davidson even need to write this book? So I'm going to peek in the chat and see if we got an answer there. That's a really great answer. They are too busy to pay attention to you. Honestly, I think Liz Davidson, she had these other things in her book. I think that's a better point than some of the other things that she said in her book, that, just, we all get busy, right? And you don't have to be a bad person to just be busy. But it's hard for them to, for them to focus on you. Your account isn't large enough. That's a great point, right? I think a lot of people feel that, especially in a situation where it's assets under management and you're just like considered like a small fry. Yeah. So those are great. Good. Please, please participate. This is supposed to be a discussion group. So the big takeaway that Liz Davidson writes about, and certainly I've experienced, and if you listen to, my favorite thing to do is listen to expert podcasts. And I have a few to recommend to you, especially the Bogle heads on investing. So John Bogle is very famous in the industry for being a super upstanding man who really wanted to help the regular investor. And he started Vanguard, and he's credited with starting index funds. He didn't actually start them, but he certainly put them on the map. And there's a podcast sort of in his honor called Bogleheads on Investing, and they get to the heart of this. Liz Davidson gets to the heart of this. Basically experts in the business get to the heart of the fact that for a variety of reasons, the entire financial services industry has a problem with misaligned incentives. So basically what I mean is, how a financial advisor gets paid, or some call themselves financial advisors, some call themselves brokers, some call themselves registered investment advisors, but basically all these people, certified financial planners, all of these people, to some extent, they make money a certain way. And if you don't understand how they make money, then you might not understand how, how your problems, it would actually, for the financial person to solve your problems, they'd actually have to just forego money. They'd have to, and I'll get into very specific things here, but even just like one example. So a lot of people are used to the idea of assets under management. So you say that you need financial advice, you say you need financial help, and you go to someone sort of more in the brokerage industry, and the brokerage industry where they get paid for assets under management. Well, they get paid a percentage of the money you hand to them. So obviously their incentive is to have you hand them the most amount of money possible. Now, okay, that's how the whole thing is set up. And it doesn't mean that brokers are bad, but what if, realistically, this year alone, the broader market, the S&P 500, is sort of on track to be down 15%. So for all the money you've had sitting in stocks, maybe all of that money has gone down considerably. Meanwhile, you have a lot of credit card debt, or you have a lot of, rather high interest debt, like maybe you have a bad car loan, or some of the student loan debt was higher than it should have been. A really good financial advisor would say to you, I want you to pay down all of your high interest debt. If you have a mortgage of 3% or 4%, that's fine, let it ride. But anything over a certain threshold, like, don't give me the money, pay down the debt. Well, someone who only makes money by holding your assets is not going to divert those assets to other things. So, right there's a perfect example of misaligned incentives. Very often, commissions can be considered very misaligned, right? If somebody only makes money by selling you something, then they're going to convince you to buy something. So we are going to get into that, but really there's so much going on with how financial planners get paid. And then everyone says, oh, it's so easy. See, you should only use a fee-only financial planner, because that way they're not trying to sell you a specific product. They're not incentivized that way. It doesn't matter how many assets you have. And that can really be good, right? I mean, I can see the logic of that. But then there's that planner is incentivized to make things more complicated than they need to be, to sort of foster a dependence on their perspective, a dependence on their advice. They're sort of incentivized to make the whole world seem much more complex than it actually is. So there's no easy answer here. And there's no problem with somebody in an industry wanting to make money. They have to pay their rent too. But it's really crucial that you understand, if you're going to ask for advice, how someone's getting paid and how it might impact you, and maybe choose your planner accordingly. Okay. So what really matters? So Liz Davidson would say, what your financial planner isn't telling you is how crucial your employer is and those employee benefits. And here's what's the kicker and kind of funny. What is Liz Davidson's incentive for? Like, what are her incentives? Well, she runs a company, Financial Finesse, that only gets hired by employers. And so she's trying to make the employer look as important as possible and as critical as possible. Now, I happen to think, based on everything I've read about Liz Davidson and her company, that she truly believes this, right? Like, this is where her heart is. And she was a former hedge fund person who felt really bad about always just sort of trying to push people, even though these are pretty sophisticated investors, pushing people into her hedge fund and kind of selling her product rather than just stepping back and saying, what you need is a more holistic plan. And if I knew you better, maybe this wouldn't be the right thing for you. So I actually think her heart is in the right place. But again, she's saying the most important thing is the employer because she gets hired by the employer. So you just have to wonder where the incentives lie. Okay, but she does say, really what your financial advisor isn't telling you is that your relationship with your employer is crucial. The benefits they offer are crucial. So we can kind of understand, especially if your financial advisor is going to be someone who just goes by assets under management, your relationship with your employer could turn such that you are diverting a lot of your income back to your employer based on the benefits they're offering. So maxing out your 401k, right? So the money you put in your 401k is money that can't go into your other investments where the person might be compensated for assets under management. You might need you might be better off spending a lot of money on healthcare. There's usually like a menu for healthcare. You might be much better off buying the most expensive healthcare based on who you are, your health history, your risk factors, the size of your family. But again, now money is being diverted away from, the sort of investment pool that, your broker who gets assets under management, like he wants to capture those dollars. He doesn't want to see you, or she doesn't want to see you diverting those dollars away from the assets under management model. So it's very interesting to think about how all of this could work. And then also, just from a practical perspective, it's been Liz Davidson's experience that people, look, it's really boring, right? Like your benefits package is really boring, but chances are, if you work for a good company, it's also loaded with amazing stuff. So a few years ago, I was actually explaining this to someone who works at Yale University, and I was just saying, like, look, that's Yale University. You should really, really look at your benefits. And she was so bored. And she said, well, just give me some hints. Like, what should I look for? And I said, okay, well, you have a teenager. Very often these top-notch employers, they, for a small fee, you pay a small fee now, and then you're covered if you ever need a lawyer to get you out of a bind. And I think anybody who has a teenager should really, try to sign up for that, because teenagers do stupid things. And lo and behold, not my friend, but she took this advice for herself, and then she also told a coworker about it. And almost like the minute the ink was dry, that coworker's son got a DUI, which I think a lot of people estimate a DUI is going to be $10,000 in legal fees if you really want to get the person cleared. And meanwhile, it ended up being $200 for this particular person. So things like that, really, really digging deep into your employee benefits and seeing that as a source of insurance and savings. If you get the right health plan, if you get this legal representation, all of those things are really great, smart financial moves that a typical financial planner is not going to even know about, or not think about, and not tell you about. And then there's just so many benefits, and every plan is different and every employer is different. But that is Liz Davidson's #1 piece of advice. That's the book's #1 piece of advice. Start with your employer, become expert on your benefits. Okay, so what else is your financial planner not telling you? We covered this a little bit, the logic of paying off debt, right? And when the stock market has had a few years in a row of big gains, people really come to think that that's the norm. They're back-to-back 20%. This S&P 500 is up 20%. People think, well, I have to be in the stock market because I'll be missing all that compounding of these glorious gains. And sometimes that's true, but for example, this year it looks like we're going to be down 15%. And if you had 22%, if you have credit card debt that's getting charged at 22%, you should have wiped that out. So, that's a big, big differential. You could have gotten rid of a 22% charge. Instead, you're looking at a 15% loss. Like, that's a pretty dramatic difference. There's something in the chat. I'm just going to take a quick peek. Does paying off debt include mortgage? So I usually don't think so, because maybe moving forward now that mortgage rates are going higher, but very often the mortgage rates are super, super low, 3, 4, 5% in that range. So I wouldn't pay off a mortgage, but again, I don't want to give specific financial advice, but I think, the examples that Liz Davidson gives in her book, credit cards are a no-brainer. Credit cards are toxic. But some people have relatively high car loans because, I don't know, they went for a car they couldn't really, they secured a car loan at a time when they shouldn't have, or some people have oddly high student loans. So and definitely parent plus loans seem to be very high. So I think the mortgage is fine. But again, if we understand how financial planners make money, it's really only the fee-only financial planner, someone who's not trying to sell you a specific mutual fund or a specific package or a way to, put your money into investments. The fee-only planner, especially if they're a certified financial planner, that is a really, really excellent designation. Trust me, because I audited every certified financial planner class. I didn't want to become one because, again, I don't want to have that conflict of interest. I only want to be an educator. But it is really a top-notch credential. And then also, to earn it these days, you have to do 4,000 hours of financial planning. So a good certified financial planner has seen it all. And there are certified financial planners out there who are fee only. So if you're much less interested in tell me what's the best investments, and you just want a more holistic approach, I think the certified financial planner is the way to go. And I think they're the ones that would really flag the high debt and the high interest debt immediately. Okay. So the next one is tax consequences. It is shocking how complicated the tax code is. And what people really need to understand, the financial advice universe is very siloed. So there isn't a lot of overlap. Someone can call themselves a financial advisor, and really all they know and all they sell are insurance policies. So that person's actually an insurance expert, and insurance is certainly extremely, extremely important. But when people go the insurance route and they go into training programs run by the insurance companies, they come out of those training programs with business cards that say financial advisor. And this is all totally well known. In fact, there's this guy who's probably kind of like the leader of the financial planning universe right now, Michael Kitces. And he had this quote. I was going to read it to you. So he started out going to an insurance company, plucked out right out of college. He was a psychology major and a theater minor, goes to a reputable, good insurance company. Insurance is important. And he goes into the training program, and the minute he's out of the training program, they give him his business card and it says financial advisor. And he starts calling on people who ask him all sorts of questions about the direction of the economy or how to handle a lump sum inheritance and things. And so he says on one of these podcasts, when I started my career as a financial advisor more than 30 years ago, I couldn't believe the company that hired me would let me put financial advisor on my business card. The reality was I didn't actually know anything about giving financial advice or economics or money. So that was his experience. Now, he actually used that experience to go get all of the knowledge base that he needed. And, he now has like, so many designations, I can't even name them. But in any case, that's because he is a thoughtful, decent person. There are plenty of people out there, all they're trying to do is make their sales number, and they're good at selling insurance and they sell a lot of it. And if somebody asks them what to do with a lump sum of money, they don't put on their financial planner hat. They put on well, of course, what you should do with a lump sum of money is buy insurance. And that happens all the time, that people who say they're financial planners are really just salespeople in a particular industry. This is from the chat. Some attorneys push trusts and their tax benefits even when their client's estate is going to be below the threshold of a taxable estate. Isn't that terrible? Oh my goodness. And attorneys are not cheap. Would never want to see that hourly rate. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so, okay, but anyway, we were talking about the tax consequences, and luckily for you guys, in case you missed it, the tax consequences of investing was one of our really popular discussion groups. And it was like this one, it was taped and it lives on YouTube. And I can send you the link. I'm kjacks at moneyinyour20s.com. I always give my email at the end. Or Young Wong, who signed you up for this. I think in your reservation, it probably still has her email. She can always send you the link to the YouTube. But if you're interested in this, you should definitely watch the tax consequences of investing, because it's unbelievable to me that the tax consequences, like the moves you make in investing, the tax consequence is not common sense. There's almost no pattern to it. I mean, odd things like if you invest in gold, it has a different tax consequence than if you invest in a stock. A lot of people don't know the wash rule. So if you go to sell a stock and then you try to buy back that stock or something similar within 30 days, it cause all sorts of problems. So basically, when you sell a stock, if you've taken a loss, you should be able to take that loss and use it against the gain you made in another area, but not if you trigger the wash rule. So all of a sudden, someone who sells a stock, and by the way, 30 days actually feels like a very long time. So if you sell a stock and then you kind of regret that you sold it, or you see the stock has gone down further and now you think it's a better buy and you get back in, you should not do that, because you have to wait 30 days or you trigger the wash rule and you mess up your ability to take a loss. And nobody teaches you this stuff. You open a brokerage account, you can do whatever you want and no one's going to stop you. So please, please learn the tax consequences of investing. And also realize that this business is very siloed. So you have the people who are insurance people, you have the people who are tax people, and then you have the people who are investment people. And they don't necessarily, especially if they haven't been in the business for very long, they don't really know what the other guys are doing. So someone can be a truly gifted, thoughtful investment advisor and not understand the tax consequences of investing, because what they're looking at is this underlying investment sound, and will it, is it an asset that's expected to grow? Like, am I putting somebody in something that's expected to grow? I mean, that's where their thought is, that's where their heart is. But that doesn't tell you anything about taxes. So that person might not even know that gold is taxed differently than a stock. And that person, might not even be thinking about the wash rule. So all of these things, you really, really, what your financial advisor isn't telling you is, what are the tax consequences? You should be aware of them, and you should make sure that nobody's messing up your taxes. Like, never, ever give somebody the ability to buy and sell investments for you without checking with you. That happens, and bad, very, very bad things happen. And also, by the way, in addition to the YouTube link, when you listen, if you listen to the tax consequences of investing and you're still really, really confused because no one ever walked you through progressive taxation and how our tax system really works, then you can, I'm willing to send anybody for free Taxes 101 is one of the chapters in my book that if you don't have a foundation in progressive taxation, if you really don't understand like where you personally go from being taxed, you know, there's the tax brackets, right? So there's 10%, there's 12%, and then it bumps up to 22%. And I really, it's so critical when I deal with young people for them to understand once they're in the 22% bracket, because they're still paying Social Security and they're still paying state taxes. And so they get to a point without realizing it where 40 cents of every dollar is going to taxes. And the reason that matters is if they understood it, they probably would divert more money into their 401k. Because, you know, why give away 40 cents of every dollar? But they don't really understand the bracket system, and they don't really understand where they fall within the bracket system. So I always am willing to give away the chapter Taxes 101 for free. Just email me, I send you a PDF. Okay, great. So, and please, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, because I don't want to miss, you know, this is supposed to be an interactive discussion group. And we're doing fine on time. So the next thing that your financial advisor will not discourage, and I have no idea why they won't discourage this, is if you're excited about something that has gone up, that everyone's talking about, that's capturing headlines, and you want to get in because everyone's talking about it, that's called chasing returns. You know, they're talking about it because it's going up. That's almost never a good idea. And I'm an educator, but one of the reasons I'm really, really glad I'm not a financial planner is that I think in the past couple of years with cryptocurrency, I think it would have been very difficult to tell clients no about cryptocurrencies, or maybe not no, but like really, really limit it. Like if, you know, that this cannot be a significant part of a portfolio. It's very hard when people think something is the new thing, it's the future, it's this great innovation, and then they see it go from a very small number all the way up to, you know, I don't know, when it started below 30,000, you know, say it was like in 15, 20,000, and then it races up to 68,000 and everyone and their cousin wants to be in it. That's just awful. I mean, the incredible decline of cryptocurrency, you know, it really doesn't matter if someone was able to discipline themselves and only stick to maybe, you know, 10% of their overall investable assets. But there are people out there that really convince themselves this is the future. And they're sitting on just extraordinary losses, painful losses, and who knows if it's going to turn around. I mean, I guess if you convince yourself it's the future, you convince yourself it's going to turn around, but I would not have wanted to be in the position to try to convince someone that, where if I'm helping them with their money to stay calm, because some people don't want to stay calm. And that's probably why financial advisors ignore it. You know, they're like, it's not worth the fight. I'm being told to do something. I'm being asked to execute a plan. So in any case, now we have 4 things in the chat. I hope these aren't the people who love crypto and they're going to yell at me, but let's see what we've got. Oh, okay. Please send me. Okay. Buffett was all over not to invest in crypto. Oh my goodness, Warren Buffett. I mean, he was so extreme. He said, he said something outrageous, like if you gave me all the crypto in the world, I wouldn't even want it, you know, even if I got it for free. So yeah, he hated crypto. Please send me the free chapter. Okay, I think because this is being taped, you know what, let me just take a picture of your email, because even though it's being, even when it's being taped, the chat disappears. So I'm just going to take a quick picture of that. But so my email is kjacks@moneyinyour20s.com. So kjacks@moneyinyour20s.com, and you'll see it at the end. So definitely please send those requests to my email, because I think we kind of lose the chat, and then I won't have your email. Okay. Second, the amount of energy to support this currency with electricity, coolers to keep, yeah, totally, right? I mean, oh, the planet does not need that. Okay, a lot of people are saying, please send me the chapter. So please send me an email, and then I will reply with the chapter as an attachment, okay? And I think Siobhan just put my kjacks@moneyinyour20s.com into the chat. So you can just take a picture of that or copy it or whatever. Okay, great. All right, so please, please, please do not get crazy about the hot stuff. I mean, we had the dot-com bubble for that reason. We had the SPAC bubble recently for that reason. If you don't know what a SPAC is, the special interest stuff. So even things like, I actually really like this Nextdoor where you get to talk to all your neighbors and things like that. And that's an example of a SPAC. And so, instead of having a regular IPO, you have these special blank check type companies, and they come out and, so the Nextdoor, which I think a lot of people recognize, came out with a lot of fanfare, and now it's at $2. Okay, so the things that got a lot of buzz, a lot of fanfare, I mean, they've all been crushed. They've all been hurt. I'm not saying they're terrible investments now. I don't know, but please just be careful of the hype. And financial advisors really should, they should do the hard work of telling their clients to calm down and not jump on what everyone else is talking about. But that's hard work, and it makes you seem, I don't know, like you're not cooperating with your client. And so it's tough. I mean, I'm not sure it's really the financial advisor's fault. Okay. All right. Okay, a lot of people are saying, please send me the chapter. So I just want to make sure that you guys are going to send me an email, kjacks@moneyinyour20s.com, and then I will send you the chapter, because the chat is going to disappear after this, and I won't be able to capture your email information. Okay, last but not least, I mean, up till now, we've been talking about reputable, fair people, people trying to do a good job. They just have misaligned incentives, right? Like there's nothing wrong with, a stockbroker. There's nothing wrong with that person. And, people need to buy stocks, and people need to have, there's nothing wrong with investment advisors that work for assets under management. You just have to understand how they get paid, and how that, because of the way they're paid, they're not going to tell you to go delve into your employee benefits. They're not going to tell you to max out your 401k. They're not going to tell you to pay down debt. They just aren't going to tell you about tax consequences, because they don't know. So it's just ignorance. They were never trained to know. So registered investment advisors are not tax specialists. So these are all the things that you really have to understand to have your money handled correctly. But then we get to just down to bogus advisors. And I read you that quote. Hopefully you get the idea that anybody can kind of put the shingle out. But here's a podcast I was listening to, Optimal Finance Daily. It's really good, kind of quick hits, 7-minute podcasts. And this one of the guys who's kind of famous in this, the Optimal Finance Daily, kind of takes the best of all the different podcasters out there and mixes them up. And this guy, ESI Money, was just at his gym, and he was overhearing a guy talk to his friend. And the friend said, hey, how's your work? And he's like, oh, I quit that job. I hated that job. I'm doing something new now. And he's like, oh, what's the new thing you're doing? Oh, I'm a financial advisor. Really? I didn't know you went to school for that. Oh, I didn't. Really? I didn't know you knew a lot about finances. Oh, I don't know a thing. But I'm a financial advisor. So this is like overhearing this locker room, real world locker room conversation. It's like, well, how could that be? How can you walk around with a business card that says financial advisor? Well, anybody can put financial advisor on their business card, and that there are companies that are trying to sell a specific product that is somehow going to be finance related. And very often, we just get back to the whole insurance idea. So if someone's going to sell insurance, they don't have financial advisor. If they don't have insurance agent on their business card, they have financial advisor. A lot of brokers today have only been trained to sell you stocks and bonds and ETFs and mutual funds and things like that. That's the only training they've received. But they can put financial advisor on their business card. Doesn't mean they know anything about your particular situation. Or they might, in theory, well, I'm sure they know about saving for college and 529 plans and things like that, but they don't have the big picture. and they don't know how to help you with the big picture. And they certainly, would call themselves a financial advisor and then not ask you if you have adequate insurance, right? So it works both ways. The insurance person's going to make sure you have the right insurance, but have no idea about your investments or anything else. The financial advisor who's a broker is going to help you with your investments, or the registered investment advisor. But maybe the thing you need most is insurance. Maybe you're underinsured. I mean, these are the things that you have to think about. Who's the specialist that you're dealing with? How were they trained? I'm going to take a quick peek in the chat here. What do you think of financial planner who is employed by a bank like Northern Trust? So I'm so glad you asked that. I think Northern Trust is a special case, but in general, me personally, I cannot stand banks. I have seen awful, awful things. A lot of people, when they're unsophisticated, really unsophisticated, like their parents never owned investments and things like that, they think money, they think bank. So the first place they go when they finally have a little money is to a bank. But very often, if you're talking about like the bank on the corner, like the Bank of America or the M&T Bank or things like that, those are not the best, most highly trained people. And they're also obviously there to push a product. So my babysitter a few years ago, her husband had a very, decent job at the airport. They were finally saving money. And he went into his local bank and he said, I want to invest my money. And luckily he didn't do what this guy said, because it sounded so suspicious. But this guy said, I have the perfect mutual fund for you. I'm going to put your money in this mutual fund. And Carlos paused and said, okay, thank you. I want to go talk about this with my wife. And luckily he talked to her and she talked to me. And this mutual fund had a load. So a load is a fee. There are no load mutual funds and there are load funds. And load funds means there's a commission, a big fee, either to get into it, to stay in it, to get out of it, fee. This one was 5% initial fee. So that is catastrophic. That is disgusting. I mean, that is in this day and age, that is literally unbelievable that you would put somebody into a mutual fund that takes 5% of their money as a fee. And the underlying mutual fund, the underlying investment was not even well selected. It wasn't even like the kind of, someone who's just starting out, you just put them in like a total market fund or an S&P 500 fund or something very basic. And this was, on top of that, kind of a weird fund and very esoteric. It was maddening. So I'm sorry for anyone out there, if you work at Bank of America, don't hate me, but the bank is not the first place I would go for financial advice. Okay, what's this? This is scary. So where do you start and how do you find the right planner? That's right. Okay, so it is scary, right? So, and we don't have enough time to really get too deeply into it, but I'm glad you're properly scared. There are designations. So anyone who's truly a certified financial planner, who really has that designation, that means that they've had a lot of education and a lot of training, and they're more holistic. They look at more of the big picture. So, always find out what somebody's training was. And it really doesn't have to do with what they studied in college or where they went to college. So you want to get at their credentials and their training. If you're just looking at investments, someone who's a registered investment advisor, a broker, they have to actually pass competence tests. So FINRA is the organization that produces these very exhaustive tests. But what you need to know is, so even if they've passed these tests, it just shows competence in the area of investing, right? So I guess first you have to ask yourself, what am I trying to do? Am I completely lost? Do I not know? What's my level? Or am I just looking for financial advice? So if you're just looking for financial advice, then you're going that sort of broker, registered investment advisor route. And then you just kind of have to see that they just can't be selling you financial product. Nobody who works for a true broker like a Schwab or an E-Trade or any of those, all of these discount guys have now gotten into the advice business. So whereas they used to just be discount brokers and you were on your own, now you can, someone, E-Trade could recommend an advisor for you that's associated with E-Trade. Schwab can recommend an advisor that's associated with Schwab. Let's see. So yeah, how do you find a good one? You just kind of have to know that the investment guys and gals only know investing. And so if you're just going to go that route, you might be underinsured, right? You might be sitting on piles of debt that you otherwise should have gotten rid of. So I guess it's just, you just have to know that if you go to an investment professional, they're only going to talk to you about investments, and it doesn't mean that they're bad. This one big concept of finding a fiduciary has gotten really, really popular. Like, only work with a fiduciary, because certainly a fiduciary would never put you in a mutual fund that was going to charge 5%, because it's illegal. Somebody who has to operate as a fiduciary has to operate in your best interest. Whereas brokers just have to do things that are suitable, which is a lower standard than being a fiduciary. I don't know if I'm totally oversold that it has to be a fiduciary, because I actually don't have anything against brokers. I like brokers. You just have to know who you're dealing with and how they're incentivized, and always ask about fees. They have to disclose fees. You can sue them if they don't. So I don't know if that answers your question, but you can at least make sure you're not dealing with the bogus ones that just did, 3 weekend training courses and now they're calling themselves a financial advisor. Somebody should have passed, whether it's the Series 65 or the Series 7, if somebody's working for Schwab or E-Trade, they've done that. They can't work for them otherwise. Yeah, and you know what? Google that question and read from the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or some reputable organizations their advice, because it's a big question, a big deal. Okay, now, what's been your experience? You guys have been great putting things into the chat, but certainly if anyone else has had a really bad experience and wants to share it, that would be great, or anything to look for. That comment about the attorneys putting someone, through the estate plan is shocking. I mean, it's just, for what an attorney charges, that's just unbelievable. And you would, I can't even imagine how they could do it. It's like, maybe because the tax laws changed so dramatically under Trump, and the estate planning threshold went way up. So maybe it was just an innocent error. No one was expecting that. Or maybe plans are being implemented with the thought that the estate plan threshold is going to be lowered now that Trump is gone. I don't know. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but that is a tough one. But if anybody else has had an experience with a financial advisor, or something that they know to avoid, or something they'd like to add to the conversation. You had a bad experience with Brown Brothers Harriman. I went with my gut and left. Yeah. So when you say bad experience, did you feel like you were just a number? Do you feel like they put you in things, investments that had underlying fees? They didn't listen. They didn't ask about your whole picture. Anything specific? No, I'm not. The advisor. Oh, okay. Let's see. Hold on one second. So the advisor wouldn't listen to me when I said I wanted to get out of fossil fuels. Isn't that amazing? I've found this over and over. The whole environmental, social governance is really important. And yet kind of the old timers in the business, they're just in denial. They just, they don't get it. even on these podcasts, I was telling you, so the Bogleheads on Investing is just a great podcast series. So if you'd like podcasts, just Google, not Google, but in your podcast, you search Bogleheads. So for John Bogle, it's Bogleheads are these people who are fanatics about John Bogle and Vanguard. They did this whole thing on ESG investing and how just kind of how the really older seasoned investment advisors they just won't do it. They just won't steer you clear of the things that your conscience wants you out of, and they're in denial that it's that important. So I'm not surprised to hear that. Let's see, what was this other one? Fidelity offers for a fee management of a client's portfolio. Are they not required to have fiduciary responsibilities for the client's finances? Brokers are, so here's the thing. When you're working just with a broker, they just have the suitability standard. But now places like Fidelity and Schwab they're hiring, not hiring, because all these guys are actually independent. They say they work for these places, but they're all independent. It's kind of an independent network. The ones that are registered investment advisors, they do have to have the fiduciary standard. So it's actually very confusing. You have to ask them, are you held to the fiduciary standards? Because if you're talking to a broker, they're not. If you're talking to one of their financial, their sort of newly minted financial advisors who are actually registered investment advisors, they are. But always ask questions about that, and always ask about fees, and look for fees. Even people who hand their money over to someone for assets under management. What's amazing is, say let's say it's like a Merrill Lynch and the assets are under management. So Merrill Lynch is taking 1% of all, like the person has $500,000, they're taking 1% every year, like $5,000. But then they're putting that person in mutual funds that also have fees. So there's the 1% of assets under management, and then the actual mutual fund that's part of this person's portfolio now is also charging fees. So fees are everywhere, and they really eat into returns. So, but none of this stuff is a secret. So obviously, if you have an investment advisor and they're recommending things or putting you in things, you can see anything they put you in, you can just look up. And some people don't know how to do this. Like a mutual fund, like a stock has a ticker symbol, right? So, like Disney's ticker symbol is DIS, and you can look it up and you can find out all certain things about the stock. The same thing with a mutual fund. Instead of a ticker, well, it has a ticker symbol, but it's usually like 5 letters, right? Well, you just tap in those 5 letters into your stock screen, and it'll bring up all of this information. And part of that information will, if you drill down, will be the underlying fees. So you can just see for yourself. And these retirement date funds have become so popular. I hate them. They're loaded with fees. It's ridiculous. Like, people think that they want turnkey and simplicity, and I want one-stop shopping and stuff like that. Well, you're paying a much higher fee for this supposed one-stop shop, when it's really easy. These retirement date funds are just mixing stocks and bonds, and they're loading you up on the what are supposedly more conservative, but I hate bonds. And they're adjusting it year after year as you get older to get you out of stock, rotate you out of stocks and into bonds. But when they do that, they take huge fees for doing this. So it's confusing. All right, I got 4 more messages, and we've got only 6 minutes left. So let's see. Brown Brothers, good ones, living on past reputation. In 2007, approximately, a financial advisor was pushing a closed-end fund as equivalent to cash. I researched it, and it held very risky mortgage-backed securities. Oh my gosh. I rejected their offer and warned them that they were going to get sued. This is what happened. Wow. Their clients were just destroyed. Yep. Can you answer Karen Kelly from a few chats above? All right, where was Karen Kelly? Are there financial advisors who are knowledgeable about tax consequences, investments, and insurance who will look at your situation and give advice that covers all aspects? So really what a good financial, like a certified financial planner, and that's the designation I personally would go with, they should know how to pull in a team right? They should have a general knowledge, right? So, and again, this gets back to like, well, how much money do you have? So a good certified financial planner has a general knowledge, but if somebody has like, you know, a lot of money at play, or they've just inherited a lot of money, that person, that financial planner should be pulling in a tax person or pulling in an attorney, or put, you know, that person, that certified financial planner should know the team that you need. So maybe that's the question to ask, you know, like if you're selecting this person and they're a certified financial planner, tell them your concerns about running afoul of taxes or legal issues or insurance or any of those things, and say, who should we pull in? And I'm sure a good certified financial planner has a good insurance person on speed dial and a good tax person on speed dial. Okay, let's see. Okay, I have advisors from the brokerage houses, but some are encouraged me to add another personal manager for an additional fee. Why bother? Yeah, ask them, why bother? What value are they giving? I don't know. I don't know. But I'm, you know, I'm glad you're suspicious. I'm glad you're concerned. Okay, next session, mark your calendars, register online. January 10th, the myth that bonds are safe. Some bonds are great. I'm not disparaging bonds, but just very similar to our conversation tonight, you know, caveat emptor, buyer beware. You have to understand the pros and cons, and some bonds really are not safe. And I thank you so much. This was a great, great group. Siobhan, did you need to chime in, add anything?
No, I mean, you have the information up here for the next session, so everyone can register from our calendar. And like you mentioned earlier, myself or Yang Wang we can send out the YouTube link once this is up online. But thank you, Kristen. This was great. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. And please, guys, write down my email if you want that chapter. You can always, Young can always tell me that you need the chapter. You could email her and then she can email me. But yeah, this was great. You guys were a great group, and looking forward to, oh, wait, one more chat, one more. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. And I hope to see you on, well, now I've already forgotten the date. Hold on. I hope to see you on January 10th. There we go.